Okay, so we are recording. So like I said, welcome to your session, your masterclass on preparing for your annual appraisal. So do let me know in the comments, when do you have your appraisal? Is it coming up? Is it due? Because I know some of the corporate clients that I work with have their appraisals at different times of the year, their annual appraisal. Some have it at the end of the year, so which means you'll have yours coming up very soon. Some people have that at the beginning of the following year. Some people, there's one client in particular that I work with that has their annual appraisal on your individual work anniversary. So if you started in March, you'd have it then. If you started in August, you'd have it then. So it depends. So everybody's is different, which I always kind of think, I'm not sure how that would work, because you tend to set the objectives from the organization at the beginning of the year, and it comes down that way. And I'll talk more about that as we go along. So do let me know in the comments, have you got one coming up soon? I'm just going to make sure that I pop the comments. Oh, Ellie, you've got yours next week. Okay, so very soon. So this is brilliant timing for you coming up then, thinking about yours for next week. I can see we've got Jenna. I think we've got a couple of people that have come in. I think we may just have Ellie at the moment. So yeah, so you've got yours next week. Let me know if you're watching on replay as well when you've got yours, because I will look back on the comments later. But whenever you have yours, hopefully this session is going to help for whatever that might be. And obviously we're recording this so you'll be able to watch it back in a more timely manner if you haven't got one coming up. I think even if you haven't got one coming up at work, I think some of the things that we're going to talk about today will really help to, even if you just want to put some time aside to think about what you've achieved this year, what you want to achieve next year, and just do some reflection work and just think about your goals and your own personal development. Because I also know, unfortunately, because I mainly, and I will do a proper introduction to myself in a second, but I do know that with a lot of the work that I do around leadership development, unfortunately, there are a lot of managers out there that aren't really doing any type of appraisal, one-to-ones, review process, personal development plans. It's still, there's still quite a lot of people out there that are not doing it. And actually, I've been working with a particular manager who is so frustrated because they're not having any one-to-ones with their manager at all. And she wants them, she wants to develop, she wants to progress, she wants to be given some feedback, some positive feedback, some areas for development, and she's just not getting it from her manager. So something that I've always kind of, whether I'm having a one-to-one with my managers or not, something that I have always done when I've worked in corporate is taken ownership of my own progression, of my own development, and really taken the bull by the horns and really taking that responsibility and that accountability for what I'm doing. I haven't waited for that appraisal to be booked in my diary. I haven't waited for my manager to be doing my one-to-ones, as much as they should be. It's part of their role. But rather than me kind of playing that victim mentality and thinking, well, I'm just not having an appraisal, so I won't do anything. I won't think about my own goals. I won't think about my own personal development plan. Rather than sitting back and resting on my laurels and waiting for it to happen to me, I've taken ownership of that. And like I said, even if I have been having appraisals and one-to-ones, I've always probably over-prepared for my one-to-ones, but there's no harm in over preparing. But yeah, I can remember I used to go kind of into my one-to-ones armed with a folder full of evidence, full of things that I prepared, because that was something that was really important to me. And if I was going to be successful, achieve my goals, and do what I want to do in my career, then I knew that I needed to take that upon myself. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to start with that, really. So I'm going to start sharing my slides. Let me know, say hi in the comments if you are watching. I can see we've got a couple of people there on my phone. So whilst you're hopefully saying hello to me in the comments so I know who is on, I'm just going to start sharing my slides with you that I'm going to share with you tonight. So it's going to be an hour's masterclass. So we're planning to finish at about 8 o'clock. So here we go. So first of all, just a little bit of an introduction to me for anybody that is watching that's maybe not met me before. I know Ellie, obviously we know each other well now. We've been paddle boarding and cycling together. So we are part of this new kind of outdoor group with Ladies Life Lounge. We're doing some outdoorsy stuff, and it's been really nice actually to do something a bit different like that. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Emma Dechoux. I am the Chief Inspirer at Inspired Learning, which is my training and coaching business. I started this in around about 2000, well, it was 2018, not roundabout. I don't know where that came from. In 2018, I started the business. And prior to that, I've been working in large corporate organizations, anything from an organization with 7,000 employees. And then my last one had 80,000 employees. And in that time, I've worked in learning and development. I've also got a recruitment background, and I've been in learning development for 16 years, off and on, because in between that, a couple of years spent in recruitment. It's a long story why and how that happened, so I won't bore you with that this evening. And so within that time as well, I've managed large teams. So when I come to deliver my leadership training, I not only bring my training and learning and development experience of 16 years, but I also share my experiences of managing my own teams. And so I think it's fair to say that I've done my own fair share of appraisals with my teams, and I've obviously had a lot of appraisals in the past. So I'm really pleased to be delivering this masterclass for you this evening. I'm also a facilitator, so I facilitate face-to-face workshops, programs, and virtual. As you can imagine, in the last 18 months, it's been a lot more virtual than in person, face-to-face. Although tomorrow, I'm being allowed out of the house and I'm going to Birmingham to deliver a face-to-face workshop. So really, it's really nice out. It really feels like a novelty, like a treat to get out of the house and deliver face-to-face. So I do a mixture of both on a number of topics, mainly around management and leadership development, but I also do topics such as resilience and well-being, mental health. I'm a mental health first aider as well. And I also have just done my training to deliver menopause awareness, which I'm really looking forward to starting doing that in the new year. And I'm a coach as well, so I do a lot of one-to-one coaching, from business coaching to life coaching to coaching managers and leaders within the organisations that I work with. So that is a little bit about me. I'm based in Nantwich in Cheshire. And I've been in the Ladies Life Lounge. I've been a member for, I think it's probably, well, it was definitely before the pandemic. I think it was when I was coming up to my 40th. So I was 39 at the time. So we're talking about, a good couple of years now. I think it probably was just before the pandemic, because I can remember going to a manifest in the March. And I wasn't a member then, actually, so it probably is nearly 2 years. So really love being in the members lounge, and just got to meet some great ladies, which has been brilliant. So that's a little bit about me. What we're going to cover today, we're going to look at reflection. We're going to look at setting objectives for 2022 and then future focus. Because whenever you have your annual review, you tend to have two parts of it. So you have the looking back, which is looking at your performance for the last year and reflecting on that. Maybe you and your manager will have some agreements on where you feel that you've hit on your objectives, and hopefully those objectives have been spoken about throughout the year. Let me know if that does happen where you work in the comments. Do you just have one annual appraisal and that's it, and your objectives don't get spoken about for the rest of the year? Or do you have regular one-to-ones, coaching, feedback sessions? Do let me know if you're watching on the live, and let me know if you're watching on replay as well. Really, that always intrigues me on how your organization does these types of things. But your annual appraisal, the formal one, which tends to be the one that goes out to HR and kept on your file, tends to have those two sections, looking back and then looking forward. Like I said, the looking back is reflecting, looking forward is really thinking about, okay, well, what do we want to achieve next year, setting some new fresh objectives. Maybe there's still some ongoing ones, so you'll discuss that. And then hopefully also talking about your personal development plan, and those objectives being very stretching for you. So your personal development plan tends to come hand in hand with that. So whatever is on your personal development plan is hopefully going to help you to achieve the objectives that have been set. Ellie, you're saying you have quarterly one-to-ones. Okay, that's great. And I'm going to talk to you about breaking down goals into quarters. So that's good. Now, if you have, I'm aware that some of you have attended vision board sessions with me. I know I did one for Ladies Life Lounge round about this time last year, so it was December last year, and you'll see that there is a little bit of a crossover, because just as much as it doesn't matter where you're setting goals, whether it is in your work for your career, whether it is in your business because you're a business owner, or whether it's goals that you're setting yourself in life for your personal goals, the same concept applies as far as I'm concerned. So you may see a little bit of crossover with that if you've attended the vision board sessions. So that's what we're going to look at today. When I say future focus, this is very much around maybe taking along some of the tips for after you've had your end of year appraisal. So Ellie, for example, when you've had yours next week, then you may want to think about some of the things that we're talking about today to do for the following year, ready then for your, dare I say it, annual appraisal at the end of 2022. So it'll make sense when we come to it. So the first part is the reflection. Now you may have, and let me know if you have what kind of form that you have at work to fill in. You may have some set questions that are already on there. Obviously for tonight, for the purpose of this masterclass, everyone's different, works for different organizations, so I don't know exactly what it is that you have. So you may have some set questions on there. If not, or if you want some more questions, I'm just going to share with you some real key things that you can do to take some time out to reflect. So before your annual appraisal, just book some time out for you to really, and this is the beginning of the preparation part for your appraisal, to just really reflect and think about what's gone well for me this year. What has really gone well? What am I pleased with that's happened this year? What progress have I made? What's maybe been my proudest moment, or what's the thing that I'm proudest of? So not necessarily proudest moment, but it might be what is the project that I've delivered that I'm most proud of, or what's the most, the piece of work that I've done and produced this year that I'm most proud of. So have a think about that and make some notes as you go along on this. What went better than expected? So, maybe what I actually set my bar and my goals quite low, but actually I overachieved and it went better than expected. What are my top 3 challenges right now? So, what am I actually battling with? What are my top 3 challenges? And that might be something that you want to discuss with your manager in your appraisal. It might be something that actually you want to work through now. Think about those challenges and think about some solutions to those challenges that you can present to your manager. It's always better to be solution focused than to go to them with, well, these are all my problems, these are all my challenges. Is actually work through them and think about it before your appraisal, and maybe think about some solutions that you can take forward to your manager. And then maybe think about, what do you want to do more of in the next 6 months? So what is it that, starting the year next year at work, have you maybe not been doing enough of that you'd like to do more of? And is that a conversation you need to have with your manager? But then also you might want to think about what you're going to do less of, because knowing the amount of people that I work with in the different organizations, everyone's just maxed out in terms of capacity. Workload is just ridiculous right now for people. I know that. And so if there's something that you want to do more of, you're gonna have to think about, well, actually, what am I gonna then do less of, and how am I going to fit the more of into the list, into the day job, if that makes sense. So there are just a couple of questions you can ask in terms of reflection. A couple of other things in terms of preparation and just things to get ready for the appraisal itself is just to think about, what evidence do I have? Okay, so for things that I want to go in and talk about, and for the objectives that I've achieved this year, what evidence do I have to prove that I've achieved those objectives, especially if you've been working remotely a lot this year? So let me know in the comments. Ellie, I think it is just me and you this evening, but let me know in the comments, or if you're watching on the replay, my mind's gone completely blank now. What was the question I was asking? My mind's gone completely blank. What evidence do you have to prove? Oh, sorry, yes. If you've been working remotely, I knew it had come back. If you've been working virtually, your manager might have not actually physically seen you and observed you doing your job to be able to give you enough feedback and to provide you with that feedback on your performance. And so that evidence might not just come from you. That evidence might also come from other people that you spend a lot of time with, key stakeholders, other members of the team. So is there something like a 360-degree feedback that you can do? And actually, it doesn't have to be necessarily anonymous 360-degree feedback. It can just be, I used to just drop an email to a couple of weeks on the run up to my appraisals. I used to send an email to some of my key stakeholders and just say, got my appraisal coming up. I'd really appreciate a couple of sentences feedback wise on, how you find us working together. You just get that back on email, and that collates and that stays with your evidence. What I would also do, and this is going to be in the future focus bit, but it's important, because it's too late if you've not been doing this now for this year's appraisal, especially if it's next week. So Ellie, you're saying you requested feedback from your direct reports. Brilliant. So that's really good to have that and take in. But what I would maybe do and think about for next year, if you've not done this year, is I always used to have a folder in my inbox. In fact, even now I've got a business, I still do have that, and it's called emails to keep. And you can obviously call it whatever you want, if you want to call it positive feedback or evidence, whatever, but it's a separate folder in your emails that whenever throughout the year that you do have some great feedback sent on an email, or you have something that you think is evidence that you'd like to take into your manager, then just pop that into that folder once it's dealt with. And then, I mean, do you know what? It's really good as well for days when you may be having a bit of a day or a week where you're thinking, what am I doing here? I don't feel very motivated, or you've got that imposter syndrome creeping in, or that internal chatter of, oh, am I good enough? Actually, just nice to have a look through those, sit back and have a look through those emails and just remind yourself how good you are at your job. Yeah, Ellie, you're saying you do that and it really does help. Brilliant. Brilliant. And so having that separate folder, and then, for you, Ellie, I know you're saying you have yours quarterly, then and 3 months is a long time. And if you've had emails and you've not, they've just got lost in your inbox, then at the end of those 3 months, it can be hard sometimes to look back and think about preparing for that one-to-one. And then obviously if you do that annually as well, it can be hard to think about what you've achieved in the last 12 months. Whereas if you've got that separate folder, you've just got it there to keep, and it's easier to put that evidence together. A couple of other things just wanted to mention at this stage is to really make sure that you understand the review process. Also making sure that your manager's putting that appraisal in your diary well in advance and giving you time to plan and prepare. I've had it before where my manager has put an appraisal in my diary literally for the next day, and I've pushed back. And I've said, look, in an assertive way, which Jodie would be pleased of, I have pushed back and said, well, I'm really sorry, but I'd like some time to prepare, if that's okay. So tomorrow's quite short notice, maybe having that communication of, I've got all these things that I need to do today. So could we maybe push it back a bit? Because I really want to make sure that I put some thought and effort into this. And your manager's not going to say, no, I don't want you to put any thought and effort into your appraisal. And so they've always said yes and moved it, and probably, walked off with a tail between their legs thinking, actually, I shouldn't have done that. So making sure that you know what they want you to prepare in advance as well. So knowing that process. Keep a work journal, that can be good as well. So as well as having that inbox, maybe just keeping a work journal and journaling every now and again how you're feeling at work and how you're getting on, and maybe, the things that you do want to develop in, and anything that kind of comes to mind, you can just put into that journal. When I was doing my CIPD, we had to keep a CPD record, and that was really useful because it was a record that every now and again we just had to update with some of the learning that we were doing. And that learning can take form in many different ways, and I'm going to come on to that shortly. Do your own review. So, spend some time, book some time out. Actually, some of the things we're going to talk about today will really help you to do your own review so that you go well prepared into your review with your manager. Come up with your goals. So think about your objectives that you want to work towards. It's a two-way conversation, this appraisal. And so it's about you taking that ownership and thinking, well, actually, what goals do I want to work towards next year? And then having that conversation with them. Maybe preparing some feedback for your boss. So have you done this, Ellie? If you've got any feedback to give to your manager on maybe some of the things that you'd like them to see, what more that you might want from your manager, and or some good positive feedback that you might want to give them as well. So preparing that can be good, especially if your manager might ask you and you're not prepared for it. Have you got any feedback for me? Is there anything that I can do to help you? And I actually encourage managers on my courses to do that. So if you're not prepared for that, it might just put you on the spot, and you'll end up kind of going, no, everything's fine. Yeah, everything's great. And you walk off from there and you think, actually, why didn't I tell them this? And if I would have known they were going to ask me that question, I would have been better prepared for it. So, have a think about that. Yeah. And Ellie's saying that's a good idea. Great. Drive the discussion, making sure that you're taking ownership of that. And so you drive that discussion, show your manager how prepared you are. Because ultimately, it's your career, it's your job, it's your development. And so it's important to make sure that you're taking that ownership and driving that discussion. And the question that we always get around appraisal time is around salary, pay increases, bonuses, this kind of thing. And I don't know if your annual appraisals are linked, whoever's watching. I don't know if your annual appraisals are linked to your pay increase, pay rise. But if it's a conversation that you want to have, just make sure that you have researched any salary data. So maybe you've done a benchmarking exercise. This is something that I used to do all the time in recruitment, where you'd kind of look out to the market if you're recruiting for a new role. Maybe it's a new role that doesn't exist in the organization, and you do a bit of a benchmarking exercise in the market to see what is kind of the average salary for that particular role. So if you've done some benchmarking for your own role and you feel that actually you are worth more than what you're getting paid, then it's always good to take in some of that evidence as well, if that's the conversation you want to have. I'm a little bit more proactive in that way as well, where I won't necessarily go in and expect and say, the first time I have the conversation is, can I have a pay rise now? I have in the past more had conversations around, I'd really want to progress in my career. I want to be earning more, a better salary. So can we discuss some ways that I can get to that point? And so it's almost saying, I'm not saying that I'm looking for a pay rise now, but what do you think I need to do in the next 12 months to get there, to have that pay rise? Ellie, you're saying you're the top of your salary band, so only ever get minimal amount every year. Yeah, and I know that can be really frustrating when you're at the top of that salary band. And, I was only coaching somebody last week who is a manager of someone that was a manager, and his team disbanded about 2 years ago. And so rather than making him redundant, they offered him this other role, which is what he's doing now. But that means that what they did as part of that was kept him on his manager's salary with a company car, with some other perks. And that means that he's the difference between what he is on and the rest of the team doing the same job is quite a big gap. But what's happened is, for the last 2 years, what's carried on happening is that whatever the percentage increase everybody gets, he gets the same and the team gets the same. She's had to have a conversation with him this year to say, actually, we're going to freeze that because it is such a huge gap between other people. And so obviously it's not a great conversation to have, but what we've talked about is the fact that that person's got options. Okay, you can either accept that and think, okay, I understand it's not great for me personally, but I understand that I'm working in a team of people that are on a lot less than me, and accept it and just carry on doing the job. He could either speak to his manager and say, okay, I understand that that's happening, but what can I then do now in the next 12 months to maybe move into a different role where I can have that increase in salary and I can go on to earn more. Or, and I know it sounds harsh, his other option is to leave for somewhere where he is going to get paid more. And so if it's more money, if it's a salary increase that you're really looking for, but you understand why you can't kind of make that leap, maybe it is that you're at the top of your salary band, is there something else that you can go in to do within that organization? Is there somewhere else you can progress? And so, you know, I think you've got to weigh up your options on what you want to do going forward in your career. So hopefully that helps. Now, when you're then thinking about what you want to do going forward, so we've looked at looking back and obviously talking about your objection, oh, brilliant, so you're changing roles in December. Okay, that's great. I'm hoping that is in a great way. Let me know if it is. Congratulations. And so that's the looking back part. Now let's think about looking forward. Now, if you've been on any of my sessions before, and the vision board party that I did, I will always talk about beginning with the end in mind. And so this is about really thinking, fast forwarding to the end of 2022. And I know that sounds crazy because we're not even at the end of 2021 yet, but just really thinking, right, come December 2022, what do I want to have achieved? What goals do I want to set and be proud of that I've done in 2022? And almost you can use the questions from the last slide to almost think, well, if I'm asking myself these questions in 2022, what do I want the answer to be to these questions? Okay, so you can use this for looking back, but you can also use it for beginning with the end in mind. In December 2022, what do I want to be saying that's gone well? What do I want my proudest moment to be or piece of work? What do I want to go better than expected? Probably not answer the question of what you don't want to go well. That doesn't really make sense. But also just thinking about what is it that you want to achieve and really beginning with the end in mind. Okay, so with that, it's good to then think about what areas of your role are you great at and you're happy with? But what areas of your role do you think that you want to develop in and that you want to work on? And this will really help to shape some of your objectives. Now, in my experience, and this is the way that I set objectives with my team, is that we have objectives that come from the organization, from the top, and they cascade down, and then it's kind of what it means to you, to your department and to your role. But then also have some personal objectives and some personal goals. And so what I'm talking about here more this evening is your personal objectives. Obviously, I don't know what your objectives are going to be that come from the organization. So we're just going to focus on personal objectives. Now, you may have seen this before as well, but something that can really help to begin with the end in mind and really think about, well, what do I want to develop in and what areas, is to use the wheel of life. Okay. Now, the wheel of life sometimes will have, if you kind of Google it and research it, it'll have different areas of your life on it, like career, but then it might also have things like relationships, money, family, health, whether that's split into mental health, physical health, me time, you know, all different things. It tends to be split into these 8 categories. Now, what I've done on here is changed it and done it slightly different. And you can create your own and make it bespoke to you, by all means, while you're watching this. Have a go at doing it. Just draw a circle on a piece of paper, split it into 8, and then write 8 different elements to your role around that circle. Okay, now I've just done it here as an example of when I was a learning and development manager, for example. I just thought about some of the key areas of my role. So it'd be training design. You know, what's my knowledge around designing training? Delivery of training. So how do I feel that I perform when it comes to delivery? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rate myself on a score of 1 to 10 of how happy I am in that particular area, or how fulfilled I am, or how skilled I am. It depends what it is. I've got things like managing budgets, e-learning, stakeholder management. What's my mindset and behaviors like? Maybe if it's a managerial role I want to go into, what are my leadership skills like? And then one that's always a common one is time management. And so the way that it works, I'm just going to grab the annotation tool for a second, is that we go through this this wheel and we go, okay, I'm going to rate myself, and what we've got is in the middle of the circle is a 1. It's a bit big, but you'll get what I mean. And the outer circle is 10. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around each one and think, okay, I'm going to put a little star. Let's say, okay, delivery of training, I'm going to say I'm a good strong 8 there. Managing budgets, maybe I've not had much opportunity to do that within my role, so I'm going to maybe say a 4. E-learning, well, I focus more on delivering face-to-face training than e-learning, so I'm going to say I'm probably here. Stakeholder management, I'm pretty good at that. I'm going to go with a 9. Mindset, I don't know, let's go with a 7, something like that. Leadership skills, I'm obviously going to put a 10 for that. And actually, I never do put a 10 when I'm scoring myself on things like that, because I do always think there's room for improvement. And then time management, I don't know, let's go somewhere here. Okay, what that then allows me to do, and you can also draw lines if you want to match it up. I know I haven't done the top one, so I'll go here for the top one, let's say. What it then allows me to do is align all these together and do like a bit of a spider diagram. Okay, and this really lets me clearly see which bits that I feel that I need to focus on for my goals going forward. So I can see where that comes in. So I can see, for example, you know, here on leadership skills, here I'm okay, but I can see, oh, apologies. I can see that it goes in a bit on this side. So I've got e-learning, managing budgets, and here at the top. So these may be then the 3 things that I prioritize as part of my personal development plan for next year. So that's just a little bit of a tip, something that might work for you. It might be very clear to you what you want to work on and what you want to develop on next year. But if you're thinking, oh, I feel like I've got so much, or I'm not quite sure which bits I want to work on, then this can really help to get a good picture of that. There is also something else that I use with some of my clients, which is called the Ask Matrix. Okay, and so the Ask Matrix, I just draw that on here, that stands for attitude, skills, and knowledge. Okay, and what this means is it's a great way to look at, and you can create maybe an Excel document, and do let me know, anyone, if you want a template of this, because I do have some, but you can create an Excel document where you can fill in for your role to make the perfectly rounded person that you are in terms of role. So let's say for me, if I'm a learning development manager, what is going to make me the best learning development manager ever? And I'm going to split that in between my attitude. What does my attitude need to be like to be the best L&D manager ever? What skills do I need to have to be great at that role? And what knowledge do I need to have? And then once I've listed all those things underneath those headings of attitude, skills, and knowledge, what I'm then going to do is rate myself with that as well. And I tend to do that as a 0 to 4. So 0 being not great at all in that particular area, 4 being really happy. Sorry, not 4, 3. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then what you can do is then look through that. And again, it's just a really good way of highlighting what it is that you want to work on. And I work with one particular organisation that's rolled this out to everyone in their organisation. So everyone has their own ask matrix, and they work through that in every one-to-one that they have with their managers. Obviously, we're expecting those numbers, the things that you're working on that you maybe score a 0 or a 1, we're expecting those to move up, and they form part of your personal development plan. So that's just another tip as well. So let me just clear the screen and then we'll move on. So hopefully that has helped just to have some thought around what it is that you want to achieve in your goals. And so, bear with me, let me get rid of the annotation. So why is goal setting and objective setting critical? Why is it important to us? Well, first of all, goals create focus and direction. And where your focus goes, your energy flows. Your goals breed focus and infuse your life with purpose and meaning. Whether it's your personal goals or work goals, they're the type of things that make us get out of bed in the morning, want to go to work and do what we do. If we don't feel like we've got any exciting goals or objectives to work towards, it every day can just feel a bit like Groundhog Day. So it's something that gives you purpose and meaning, gives you the knowledge that you're on that right path to the attainment of your most significant ideals, and you're heading towards that role that you are in, or that role that you want. Goals challenge you to grow, and they're an enabler for personal growth. Growth is actually one of the 6 human needs. So if we don't feel that we're being challenged, that we're growing and developing, can actually become quite bored and demotivated. They take you outside of your comfort zone, and your goal should make you feel just that kind of comfortably uncomfortable. So you're just on the outside of your comfort zone, where you're stretching those boundaries of possibilities that allow you to become the best that you can be. Goals drive you to take action. So it is easy to drift in and out of life and sleepwalk through your days. As I said, it can sometimes come to Groundhog Day. But if you don't act on life, life will have a habit of acting on you. So if you don't take that ownership of your goals, of your objectives at work, then it'll just have a habit of acting on you. With your goals fixed and you really know and you're focused what it is that you want to achieve, you then dictate the pace. Now, when you think about people that are at the top of their game, like athletes, billionaires, entrepreneurs, one of their primary traits is that they are action orientated. They make stuff happen, because yeah, it's all well and good setting your goals, but it's about the action that you take. And great to see that you have quarterly reviews, Ellie, because it's about breaking those down into smaller bite-sized chunks, and I'll come on to that shortly. So people that are at the top of their game, their days are consumed with thinking about the biggest, boldest goals. And they have that drive, that energy that really helps to turn those actions into reality. And goals offer inspiration. They breathe life into your days. We do all have days where we wake up and it feels like Groundhog Day. We feel demotivated. We're like, oh, I just want to press the snooze button just a couple more times. But the moment you switch your mind to what you're getting up to do, and that you know that you've got, it's another day, another opportunity to work that step further towards your goals, it really is kind of like that thing that ignites inside you, that switches you on and helps you to get out of bed. Now, when we set goals, when we set objectives, what we tend to use in the workplace is SMART goals. Okay, and I'm going to talk to you about smarter goals. Let me know in the comments if you've seen the SMART acronym before. It is pretty common, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about this. Now, you'll see that the first S, I say the first S, the only S on the screen, is specific. However, and the reason why I said first S is because I always add an extra S onto the front of this. And the first S for me is stretching. because I've seen people's objectives be set and people will say to me, oh, these are my objectives, and they're just basically my job, my day job, and what I have to do. So you can see in their language, in their body language and their tone, it's just not exciting them. And so it's about setting stretching objectives that are just challenging you. And if you're a manager, challenging the people that you manage to give you that excitement and give you that focus. So that's my first S, is stretching. Then we've got to make sure that your goals are specific. So what is the specific goal that you want to achieve? And the more detail around that, better. No worries. Thank you, Ellie, and good luck with your appraisal. Thanks for joining me. So the more detail, the better. Okay, so really making sure your goals are specific, and then thinking about how you're going to measure the goal. So how will you track progress and know once that you've achieved it? And can you achieve the goal? So this is achievable. So we've got measurable, then achievable. What skills do you have, and which ones will you need to obtain? Okay, so is this goal achievable for you to do in the next 12 months? And if you think you're thinking today it's not achievable because there are some skills you need to obtain, then that's telling you that that's what needs to go into your personal development plan. Then we move on to relevant. So how important is the goal to you? Is it relevant to your values? Does it get you towards your purpose? Okay, so how relevant is that goal, and does it align to your personal values as well? Time bound, when does this need to happen? What is the end date, and why does it need to be time bound? So really making sure you've got a deadline on those goals, because when you set an annual appraisal, we don't just put all our objectives as we achieve those by the end of next year, because actually you might be working on some objectives that may only take you 3 months to achieve. That's why it's important to have those regular one-to-ones and discuss the objectives throughout the year, because you may need to tweak them, or you may need to change them, or when you've achieved one, you may want to then bring another one in. So, it's important to do that throughout the year. And the E and the R, this is evaluation and reward. So the evaluation part is evaluating how you did perform. What can you learn as a result? Evaluate your progress to get those better results. And the reward bit is when and how you will celebrate. This is the best bit, really. How we're going to celebrate, how we're going to reward ourselves to, help and build those sustainable habits. And so, don't leave it all to your workforce to give you a reward. Think about a reward that you might want to give yourself when you've achieved something. So, Ellie, when you go into your new role in December, how are you going to reward yourself and for doing that and getting that new role? So yeah, so that's the smarter objectives. So Ellie, I think, Ellie's dropped off now. I don't think we've got anybody else on tonight. It's very quiet this evening. So I'm just going to carry on, and hopefully we've got some people watching this back on the replay. Let me just check what time we're on. Okay, so we're nearly 10 to 8. So when it comes to personal development plans, these should come hand in hand with your appraisal. I've seen it again with some organizations I work with that do a appraisal, but there's no personal development plan attached to it. And I'm like, well, okay, well, how are you going to make sure that your workforce is skilled enough to, first of all, achieve the objectives, but also, again, talking about that growth. If you're not setting personal development plans, then, how are you going to motivate and engage people? And it was funny, actually, I was with an organization a couple of weeks ago. When I spoke to them about personal development plans, they said that they have a bit of a culture within their organization that only people that are underperforming have a personal development plan. And I was like, what? I've never heard that before. And they said they almost treat it like a personal improvement plan, a PIP. And I was like, everybody should have a personal development plan. So so that was really interesting to hear their take on that, the culture that they have within their organization. So what it's showing here when we're thinking about personal development plans is establish the purpose and direction, identify development need. Okay, and so you can use that wheel of life to identify your development needs, or the ask matrix that I mentioned. Look at development opportunities. So what opportunities do you have to develop? And when we talk about opportunities, another tool that you might want to use is a SWOT analysis. So, you know, if the wheel of life isn't working for you, if the ask matrix isn't working for you, then another great tool is the SWOT analysis. So do a SWOT analysis on yourself. And if you've not heard of that before, that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. As much as I don't like using the word weaknesses, but it wouldn't make the word SWOT if it was areas for development. It would be SOUT. Doesn't really have the same ring to it. But we need to think about that. Let me know if you're watching on replay. Just think of another word beginning with W that isn't weaknesses, but kind of means areas for development, areas for improvement. I've never thought about that before, but we could do with swapping it out. But yeah, if you look at it as what are your strengths, what are your areas for development, what are your opportunities to develop, and what may be some of your threats that are going to stop you from developing. So that can be really good exercise to do as well. Then we need to formulate an action plan. And then we need to undertake that development. And then we record our outcomes and we review and evaluate. So I like to do this in 12-week cycles in terms of setting everything I've spoken about so far. So the reflection, the setting goals and objectives, thinking about my personal development plan, what I want to do going forward. And so I break this down into 12-week cycles. If anyone hasn't heard of the book, The 12-Week Year, I would really recommend that if you are really wanting to work towards your goals for next year, because it just puts you in that mindset where it takes you away from that annualized way of thinking. I know we've called this preparing for your annual appraisal, but it's about working out what you do want to achieve for 12 months, but then working backwards and breaking it down into 6 months and then 3 months, and just focusing on what it is you need to achieve for those first 12 weeks and putting all your focus into that, just focusing on that next step rather than thinking, do you know what, where I am now and where I want to be in 12 months seems so far away. I'm actually feel quite overwhelmed by that. Breaking it down into 12 weeks, you just focus on what it is you need to do for those 12 weeks and then how you're going to do it. What actions are you going to take? Because as much as the SMART analogy, and just go back to the other slide for a second, as much as that SMART analogy is great and helps you to set SMART objectives, one thing for me that's missing from here is the how. Because when you can write the best SMART objective, stretching SMART objective that exists, that's out there, but actually what you've done is you've worked out the what it is that you need to achieve. So what's missing for me is the how from this. And that can often be something that stops us from actually taking that action. Is that we walk away from our annual appraisal and we're all happy and we're like, great, I feel like I've got some really good objectives and it all makes sense. It's all very clear and it's specific. Then we go, but actually, I don't really know where I'm going to start and how I'm going to go about this and what actions I need to do. So that's really important in making sure that you are working through every 12 weeks, working out exactly the how. And so I work on a plan, do, review basis. I'm going to come on to that shortly. Before I come on to that though, I just want to talk about this 70-20-10 model. Some of you may have not seen this before because it seems to be kind of a well-guarded, kept secret in the world of learning and development of working out how people learn. But actually, when you think about setting your goals and think about your development plans for next year, actually, it's really important to think about how you're going to learn and how you're going to develop. Because when I say to people, what have you done in the last 12 months to develop yourself? A lot of people will say, oh, well, I went on this course, on this one-day course. And then I attended this other, like a half-day workshop, a virtual one. And then I did a program or I did a qualification. People always go to actually the 10%. People always think of learning as being this 10% here, okay? But actually, that's the least time we spend in a 12-month cycle actually learning is in a formal learning environment, like a course, a workshop, a program, a qualification, whatever it might be. If you think about the amount of time you spend at work, tends to be about 10% of your time is informal learning. To really make learning stick, and because you could attend workshops for 20 days a month over 12 months and not do anything else other than learn. But actually, that's not really how you are then going to learn best. 20% of the learning is social. And what we mean by that, the conversations that you have, whether that's with peers, with managers, with a coach, with a mentor, with people in Ladies Life Lounge. That is where the 20% of learning comes from, is the social conversations that you have. But then this huge amount here gets forgotten about. 70% of your learning is done on the job. So when you're thinking about your personal development plan and what to put in there, part of that development should be maybe your manager giving you responsibility to do a particular job, because that's how you're going to best learn. Not talking about it and talking about the theory till the cows come home. It's actually getting stuck in and actually doing it. And so it's about creating yourself some structure of how you are going to do that, other than just learning the theory and doing the formal learning. It's actually doing it, that on the job learning. So I just wanted to cover that today as well. I just take the annotation tool off. Bear with me, let me get rid of this arrow. So that's your 70-20-10 model. I mentioned plan, do, review. And so let me just do another time check. I've got 5 minutes. So plan, do, review. This is this 12-week cycle that I work on from, and I've taken this concept from the 12-week year. I plan what it is that I'm going to do for the next 12 weeks. And I put it into a 90-day plan and put all the actions that I'm going to do. I then do it and do those actions. And I do some minor reviewing as I go along. But then every quarter, I have at least half a day booked out in my diary to do a review, do some of that reflection, some of those questions that I showed you right at the beginning. And then I will then plan again what I'm then going to do for the following 12 weeks. And so, the amount of success that I have had working in this way is phenomenal. The first time I did this, I planned what I wanted to do for 12 months. So I knew what my target was for 12 months. I then planned what I wanted to do for 6 months, and then had my target and what I wanted to achieve in 3 months. Got my head down, January, had all my actions, knew exactly what it is that I was working towards, and just put all my focus into that. I didn't let anything else distract me outside of that. Nothing that, anything that didn't serve me towards those goals, I didn't do. I said no to some certain things. And when I did a mini review at the end of January, I hadn't just achieved what I'd set myself for the end of March for those 12 weeks. I actually achieved my goal for June. So I'd done 6 months worth of goals. What I thought it was going to take me 6 months to achieve, I did it in a month. And that's because I used that 12-week year concept and just really focused. I was so determined and committed. That's what I did. So I'm proof that the 12-week year really works. And it even says on the front cover, you can achieve more in 12 weeks than most people do in 12 months by using that concept. I use a very simple template as well. There's no need to overcomplicate things. So I'll use something like this, where I'll put what is my 12-month plan. I'll put some of the key areas and I'll rate 1 to 10 that I've maybe done from that wheel of life. What do I want to achieve in the next 12 months? So that's a very overview top line. What do I want to achieve in 6 months, and then 3 months? And then in this document, I have pages after this that just focuses on the actions I need to do in the next 3 months. So I've got kind of boxes broken down by week and then by day, and it goes into more and more detail. Hi, Nicola, thanks for joining. I'm just about kind of wrapping up. I've got a few more things to do, but thank you for joining. And this has been recorded, so you'll be able to watch it on the replay if you want to watch it back at the beginning. Tell me, Nicola, have you got your annual appraisal coming up soon? When do you have yours? That'd be great to know. So yes, so that's my how I kind of plan the actions. Now, something that I did want to just go through is that if you are thinking about promotion, if you're thinking about your career development and what you want to do next, I just also wanted to cover some tips on that. So a couple of things, and I've just made a few notes on here, is to look at your organization's competency framework if you have one. Okay, so I've worked for some organizations, and I work with some now that have some really robust, brilliant competency frameworks in place where you can measure your performance, your attitude, your behavior, your competencies against certain levels, and it will show you maybe what is expected of you at certain levels. I know, Nicola, obviously you work in HR, you'll be used to looking at things like the CIPD model for this that will tell you what kind of things are expected in different areas within HR. But in your organization, if you have a competency framework, what a lot of people tend to do is go, okay, well, at my level where I'm working right now, let's say I'm expected to achieve this level 3 here. Okay, so I'm just going with one of the organizations I work with has it in 6 levels, so level 1 to 6. So the more senior you are, that it goes up a level. So like your directors, heads of, probably expected to achieve at level 6. And then your frontline workers at level 1. And so let's say you're in a role where you're expected to work at level 3 and your competencies match level 3. And some of the best competency frameworks show positive indicators and negative indicators as well. Now, what you can do, what a lot of people do is they'll go, okay, well, I'm expected to achieve at level 3, so that's what I'm going to aim for to tick those things. Now, I've never done that, okay? I've always looked at a level above, because I thought, actually, I don't want to just achieve what the organisation is expecting me to do at the level I'm at now, because I want to progress in my career. I want to do more, I want to do better than what I'm doing now. And so actually, I've always looked at a level above and thought, well, what is being expected of me at that level? And that's what I'm aiming for. Because I'm a big believer that you should always act as though you're in the next job that you want to be in. So that's a little tip there. Always look at that next level. Also, you might want to look at some internal CVs, not CVs, sorry. I have wrote CVs on my notes, but what I meant by that is look at some internal job descriptions, okay? So if you are a middle line manager now and you want to become a head of department, for example, then you may want to look at some head of department job descriptions internally to see what is required at that level, and then do a bit of a gap analysis, and that might help with your personal development plan. You may also want to look externally at some job ads. So you may want to go on to LinkedIn and think, well, actually, I'm going to search for the type of role that I want next in my organization and see what's being asked for in that particular role. And again, it'll help you to form that bit of a gap analysis of where you are now. You know, how many things on the essentials and desirable list do you tick? If you tick them all, then you need to be having those conversations and ready for promotion. If there's some that you don't quite tick or you don't feel too confident in ticking, then absolutely I'd recommend building your personal development plan around that. So that was a couple of things I wanted to mention there. Also, I said at the beginning about keeping a folder in your inbox to add with evidence and great feedback so that you can easily collate this for your appraisal and you can kind of show that this is what I've done. And another tip that I would share with you is to block some time out in your diary. I mean, it can be any time of the week, really, but something that someone I've worked with closely with at the beginning of this year, what she talks about is 40 FFF. And no, it's not a bra size. 40 FFF stands for 40 minutes future focused Friday. Okay, and what she recommends is that, especially if you are somebody that wants to progress in your career, you're looking for a promotion, block 40 minutes out in your diary every Friday. It tends to be quite a good day because it might be a little bit quieter. It's quite a good day for reflection on how the week's gone and what you want to achieve the following week. But just really putting that non-negotiable time, blocking it out in your diary every 40 minutes on a Friday to just journal. You know, maybe make a few notes, maybe just reflect and think about how's the week gone? What do I want to do going forward next week? What have been some of my successes this week? What's not gone so well? How's my development plan going? How am I working towards my objectives? You know, what progress have I made this week? And so those 40 minutes Future Focus Friday absolutely can really help to just take that time and think about what you want to do next. So we're just a little bit past 8 o'clock. The last thing I just want to talk about to wrap up this evening is accountability. Okay, now there's 4 things around accountability that I want to talk about. Commitment. Being committed means buying in readily to what is asked of you, even if it isn't in your immediate job description. It shows your willingness to fulfill that larger role. It shows your willingness to have that discretionary effort, put that discretionary effort in because you're motivated, you're willing, you're engaged, and you're doing that for the good of the organization. So, you know, it's a question for you is how committed am I to doing what it is that I'm doing? Ownership. I've talked about this a lot at the beginning of today's masterclass. Having full ownership over your actions and results involves the ability to embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly. So recognize the positive aspects of what you contribute at work and remain open to receiving feedback on areas for improvement. So really having that full ownership. You know, one thing that you've definitely got full control of is how you respond, what your behavior is like. You can choose your behavior. Resilience. So if you make a mistake, bypass the pity party and make that effort to bounce back quickly from setbacks. You are more capable than you realize. You know, don't let that imposter syndrome start to creep in if you make a mistake at work. Actually, what's more important is how you respond to that mistake and how you learn from it next time, not the fact that you've made the mistake in the first place. And if the culture is right in the organization you work with, then people will be encouraging and wanting to make you feel that you are working in psychological safety, that you can try new things. And if we make a mistake or it doesn't go quite right, then, well, we know we've tried it and it didn't work and we'll move on from it. So it's about not dwelling on the past too much, because that can really start to affect your confidence on what you do going forward. So, you know, it's bouncing back from those setbacks. And continuous learning. We know that making mistakes is never fun, but accountable people don't review them as failures. Rather, they view them as teachable moments that will help to make them better in the future. Okay, so it's that seeing it as an opportunity to learn. Any challenge is an opportunity to learn, and that's about having a growth mindset about the things that you go through. So thinking about these 4 things around accountability, you know, be accountable for the actions that you agree in your appraisal. You know, ask for those regular one-to-ones to help with that external accountability, but ultimately, you know, make yourself accountable for the career that you want, for the success that you want in the role that you have. So I want to thank you so much for those of you that did join me on the live. I think Nicola popped in and out. Thank you, Ellie, for sticking around for the majority of it. If you watch on replay, thank you for watching. Just pop a note in the comments and let me know that you have watched it. I'd love to know who has. If you do want to know more about what I do, what we do at Inspired Learning, then we've got lots of different contacts there on the screen. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I do also have an Inspired Leaders Facebook group. So for any of you that manage people that are leaders, please do feel free to request to go in there and I'll accept you in. It's a Facebook group that is just for leaders in terms of developing you and helping you with great content in there. This week is International Leadership Week. So I'm doing a live at 5 every day in there. So we're going through some different areas around leadership. Yesterday I covered listening. Today I covered empathy in there at 5. We're going through the word leader. So tomorrow will be asked, because we talk about question skills, things like that. So please do feel free to join us in the group. You'll see there's a QR code on the screen as well. Please do feel free to scan that. And what that will do is it will give you a downloadable PDF on how to have more meaningful conversations. So please feel free to access that, and you will also get some further learning from me, some mini masterclasses and things like that on having more meaningful conversations. So please feel free to do that as well. And Jodie has just popped in and arrived. Hi, Jodie. How are you? Hope you're having a great evening. I'm just literally wrapping up. She's probably seen me still on the live at 9 minutes past 8. I have overrun, yes, as always. So thank you so much for watching. And like I said, please feel free to get in touch with me if you want any other information about what I do, or if you do also have any other questions about your appraisals that are coming up that maybe I've not covered this evening. But for now, I will stop sharing. I'm going to stop the live, and thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.